Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins, Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is our 88th episode.
Well, hey guys, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. Giacomo and I just got back from the craziest 10-day trip to Las Vegas and Colorado. So a two-parter.
I don't even know how to begin describing how crazy this trip was. I hope that you've been enjoying your summer. From what I can surmise, speaking to our clients, it's like everyone has this weird sort of pressure / desire to be with as many friends, as many family members as possible and do as many things as possible. And it just feels like it's a little weird navigating the world, but also a whole lot of fun, but still a little bit crazy. I don't know how it is for you out there, but that's the impression I've been getting with our clients, and it's certainly been the experience for us.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's got a little bit of FOMO. I mean, we planned this trip way in advance. This wasn't a vacation per se, it was part work, because we went to Las Vegas for the Idea Fit Expo, which is different than some of the other expos we do, because Idea Fit is to industry professionals. So rather than just talking to like gym enthusiasts about a plant-based diet, we were talking to gym owners, coaches, dietitians, people like that. So it was a really cool show, because if there's anybody that we would like to have an impact on, it's the people who have an impact on other people. So yeah, it was a great show. It was our best show that we've had so far. And we did a lot of cool stuff in Vegas. And then we had booked a concert in Colorado with Robert Cheek and his lovely wife, Karen, way back at the beginning of the year. And even though it's been kind of crazy, I'm like, I don't know if we can make this work anymore. We still found a way to make it work.
Yeah, there were some other cool things we did. We got to meet up with some of our clients in Colorado, and it's just another reminder of how nice it is to travel and hang out with our people, and how sad it is to come back home and realize that some of our closest friends are the ones that we have to travel to and visit, or that have to travel to us and visit. We had never met your clients, Ree
and Angela and Rhiannon, and it's crazy because I've been working with at least Ree since I think 2016, so getting to meet her in person was awesome. And Angela and Rhiannon and Steve, and we did not one but 2 escape rooms while we were in Colorado, which are like some of my all-time favorite things to do. I could do an escape room every week and I would never get sick of it. I think it's a blast. And Robert's wife Karen had never done one before. Well, actually neither had Robert, but Robert tested positive for COVID like 2 days after we got home. Karen did after we left, but Giacomo and I, luckily, hey, we just had COVID, so we didn't get it again. But dang, it did change up the trip a little bit, but it still worked out really, really well. And now we're home. And before we get into this episode, I want to let you guys know that I am hosting a live webinar this coming Monday, so Monday, August 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's about 5 keys to vegan fat loss. So these are 5 of the most important techniques and theories that I've used on myself to lose body fat, and also that I use with every single one of my clients. So I host this webinar like once or twice a year. Usually it always goes over super, super well. So it's first come, first serve, register, link is in the show notes here. First come, first serve, or the first 200 people to sign up. Past that, it will be full. So I would love it if you guys could come there. It'd be great to see some of your actual faces. So yeah, I hope you can make it. Oh, one more super cool thing we did before we actually get into the show.
Well,
in Vegas, Giacomo didn't do this because he's on prep and it wouldn't have been worth the price for him, but we did this thing called Blackout Dining, me and Robert and Corinne. It is a restaurant where you are served in pitch darkness, like absolutely pitch darkness, cannot see your hand in front of your face at all. And it is a 7-course meal that you have no idea what it is. When I told the guys about it, they were like, but it's not good, like what if it's not vegan? And I went to their website, and under the FAQs, it's a totally vegan restaurant, and the owners are like ethical vegans, but they're like kind of hush-hush about the fact that it's a vegan restaurant, which I think is super cool because it's a very busy restaurant And I assume the large majority of the people going there are not plant-based at all. So yeah, at the end of the meal, you're guessing the whole time, like, oh, I think this is tomato soup, but is that basil or is it dill I taste? I'm not 100% sure. And then at the end of the meal, you get to see the whole menu. And it was super fun. If you're in Vegas, I definitely recommend this. Kind of pricey. It's a little gimmicky. You're eating in the dark, but I thought it was worth it. We had a blast.
All right, I've heard enough about that because now I'm starting to get some FOMO. But fortunately and selfishly for me, I'll be able to make up for it. And hopefully for you, you'll be able to be out in Vegas, at least some of our listeners, I hope. For the Olympia in December, we will be back. I'll actually be done with my competition season. My last show is on November 29th, Battle of the Gods. Woohoo! Maybe I'll win some fun sword or something else I can use for cosplay the next time I prep. Fun aside, or whatever, I'm going to hopefully dress up as Guile for Street Fighter for a retro gaming expo in next month in Connecticut, if I make it there. We'll see. I don't know if I'll make it out as Prep Alive, but if I do, I'll go there. And now I'm circling all around, but you're getting back to the point. Olympia, December, Vegas, we'll be there. We're probably going to do the Butcher's Kitchen, which we hear is a very cool Saw-themed escape room.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
And there's another restaurant there that we had to get reservations. So we're like, come on, you don't know who we are? Robert looked at them and like, listen, I'm about to chin wag, rub elbows with you, and do all kinds of name dropping. Because sometimes we just do that because, I don't know, we're stupid like that.
It's Hell's Kitchen. It's Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. We saw it and we were just looking for a place to eat and we're like, oh, I wonder if they have vegan stuff. They have a crazy vegan menu. We went in to, do you have anything open? And they were like, our next reservations are for the following month. And we're
Whatever.
like, oh, okay. So yeah, maybe we'll go there. I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot to do in Vegas. Very fun for vegan stuff.
But hopefully we'll get to see you and hang out. And then finally, Mr. America. So these are our last two stops for the year as far as I know. Mr. America is in Atlantic City. It's the most iconic sports festival in the country, arguably the world. And Team Plantbill will be there. We're actually raising money for Team Plantbill right now, and you get to get cool limited edition swag. The link is bit.ly/plantbuilt22 for the next 50 days or so. If you want some crazy cool merch from us and a chance to support what we're doing so we can have some professional media production out there and cover the event, go to that link and donate. Link is in the show notes. And of course, October 8th and 9th, if you could show up and see our team compete and hang out with us, we would absolutely love to have the support there and get a chance to hang out with you. So Mr. America, Atlantic City, October 8th and October 9th. Do you know the dates on Olympia off the top of your head?
No, it's like the 15th or something. It's like a week before Christmas. Which is very unusual for the Olympia.
Skip Christmas and come to the Olympia and hang out with us. Anyways.
So what are we talking about today, Giacomo?
Routine and tips as far as habits go for habits that are unbreakable so that no matter what, you have a routine that works for you.
This is Giacomo's topic, so I'm excited to see where he's going to take this discussion. I have some stuff, but it's Giacomo's idea.
All over the place as usual, but Danny will keep us grounded and make sure you get some good, concise, clear-cut tips. Well, I'll be a little more big picture-y on this one, I think. When it comes to routine, what I've found is that it is helpful and it is necessary. I also think in some ways it's something, and this is where I'm going to challenge the concept before we even get into how it's a good thing. Routine can also break you. Because if you're too married to a routine, you're too married to a plan, it makes it so that if your routine isn't just so, or if your life gets shaken up, then you wind up being like, well, I just need my routine. I just need my plan. These are the way the patterns in my life work out. And it's like...
I feel attacked.
That's okay. You can feel triggered. I call myself out on this too. I've been there before. It's a delicate balance because you do need routine. Without routine, you cannot achieve big goals. I'm a firm believer in that. The exact opposite, where you have no routine at all, it feels good on the surface, but when you actually try to get shit done, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's that in-between spot where you always come back to some sort of routine. Your routine is adaptable, and you also realize you can't always even let the plan come to you. Sometimes you're just going through periods of time where you're going with the flow. So that's the way I flesh things out, big picture-wise, as opposed to just saying routine, do this. If you don't have your routine, where are you going to be? well, you know, you gotta bend, and you gotta bend and break, especially when life tries to and does break you. That being said, that's not what this episode is about. It's all about finding habits that work for you, outlining them, and then starting to put them into a routine, and then seeing how they adapt or do not adapt into your routine. And that, my friends, is how I feel you'll be able to do a 180 from wherever you're at and continue to improve what you do as far as incorporating fitness as an important part of your lifestyle, but something that doesn't take over your life, no matter how extreme your goal is. I'm also a firm believer in that. Why don't we get started with some helpful tips?
Oh, is that me?
You can.
Am I with the tips?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get into the tips yet. I just wanted to comment on what you were saying. Some of you might have heard this quote, and I might butcher it right now, but it's something like, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I have found that to be super, super true. Actually, my word of the year, if you can believe that I have something as cheesy as a word of the year, but I do, it was systematize. And that is what I have been focusing so much of my energy on, certainly for the first 6 months of the year, just creating systems, because I find that you might be able to do something really well one time, but until you can identify what the process of that was and write it down or make a note of it or memorize it and repeat it. It has to be repeatable in order for it to get you where you want to go. So creating systems in our business, in our finance, in our personal life, all of that has kind of freed up a lot of my brain space. And I think that's something that we don't think about when creating systems or routines or habits, is it feels like a ton of work, and upfront it is. And that's the thing, is upfront creating these things does take a lot of your brain power. It's hard to create new habits. You have to almost force yourself through some of these things for a while, but the more you do, eventually the less you have to think about them at all. And then poof, suddenly you have all of this new headspace and time in your day-to-day life to do other things that maybe mean a little bit more to you even.
For real. I do find myself unintentionally thinking about the things that I have systematized, how they've been systematized, and then just looking back in the back of my head and being like, these are the things I've done. These are the things that I'm doing. And it kind of messes with me. It's almost like, I don't know how to say this and articulate, but it almost kind of takes up some of my brain space. Like, just some reason I keep a running tab of the things I'm doing. And I also, one, it kind of reminds me like I did the work and it's okay. But in another sense, it reminds me like, just because I've done the work and I can think about the work that I've done and check it off in my head, what I've done in the past, it doesn't excuse me from doing the work in the future. You still have to continue to sprinkle in and even do the heavy lifting, not necessarily day in and day out, but like to some extent, you got to put these habits into place. So in other words, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm on a podcast interview with somebody and they say to me, you sound like the type of person that meditates. And in the back of my mind, I feel like I'm playing out all the times that I've meditated. And I'm like, that's all well and good. But if I'm not meditating anymore, what good is it? So, it's helpful to think about what you've done. It's helpful to acknowledge the work you've done and say to yourself, like, look, this is cool. I've done it. It helps me. I don't need to be anal retentive or obsessive about things. But it doesn't excuse you from needing to continue to do the thing. In this specific example, it's meditating. So that's kind of how my brain works when it comes to habits, things I've already done, the work that I've put in, and knowing what I need to do in the future.
Interesting.
It's true.
I believe you. I don't totally understand it, but I believe you. So when it comes, for me anyway, when it comes to creating a system or a habit or a routine, I don't know, they're all kind of interchangeable. I always work backwards from the thing that I'm trying to achieve. In the sphere of what we're talking about here, let's say someone has a goal to lose 25 pounds. It's not like, oh, well, I'm gonna do an hour of cardio every day this week. And nope, that's not gonna do it. So if I think lose 25 pounds, I think, okay, how long is that gonna take? It's probably gonna take between 3 to 6 months, right? For most people. And if I do that, then I know that at 3 months, I would like to have lost, about anywhere from 12 to 25 pounds. When you break that down to a week, it's like 1 to 2 pounds per week. Okay, what do I have to do to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week? I need to be in a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit every day to do that. Okay, how do I do that? Do I want to do it all diet? Do I want to do it all exercise? Don't do it all exercise, guys. That's a terrible idea. How much do I need to eat in order to create a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit per day? What habits do I need to implement that will allow me to burn an additional 500 calories per day? What foods do I eat? What does that look like? So, you're starting with the big picture in mind. Always start with the big picture in mind and then work backwards. And this is actually a very specific goal of I want to lose 25 pounds. What about a bigger goal of I just want to look and feel fit year round? Okay, that's a much bigger goal, and I would argue a better goal, honestly. But when you look at it that way, what do I need to do? What do I think I need to do on a regular basis to look and feel my fittest all the time? How much exercise do I think I need to do per week? What kind of exercise? How much food do I need to be eating? What kinds of food do I need to be eating? And start to map that out. And that, in my opinion, is the smartest way to set up any plan. It's with the end goal in mind.
Yeah, and not only is that important when you start doing something, I think it's important to revisit that concept while you're in between achieving your goal, both the short-term goal and the long-term goal. So going with this 25-pound weight loss scenario, say you're 10 pounds of the way there, and you have a vacation that threw you for a loop, or you have a family crisis that you were present for, rightfully so, or you're having a mental health day that turns into a mental health week. Hey, you're human, right? No one has perfect mental health, no matter how proactive you are, and no one ever will. What I'm saying here is that your human side and your commitment to keeping a balanced lifestyle and being present for not just yourself and your basic needs for others will make it so that you need to continue to revisit the big picture, reverse engineer, and check yourself. Find out what you could be doing differently, find out how well or how not well your routine is working, as opposed to just saying, I need to get back on the same routine. Yes, I agree with Danny. There are certain baselines and certain systems that you can always fall back on and rely upon, but sometimes you need to adjust and pivot.
That's actually my final tip, believe it or not. Once everything is all said and done, is exactly that you have to be willing to adapt it. You have to be. But I'll talk about that more at the end.
Everything's been said before. There's nothing left to say. We're not recording any more episodes. I'm getting to Danny's head. Yeah. Sorry, that's it. We're done and cut. I'm just kidding. Anyways, yeah. So it's a lesson that you're going to learn time and time again, no matter how developed your toolkit is for any particular goal, whether you've achieved it once or 10 times over. Every single time you go after a goal, even if it's very similar, it's going to look different for you, because depending on where you're at in life and what's going down. So I'm learning that lesson right now as we speak, for example. And it's easy to do I can just get back to my regular routine, or I can just brush this off and forget about it and everything will be okay. It's not the healthy way to go about things, and it's a way to sabotage and not move towards your goal. And then eventually, sometimes it's way too long down the line, you realize, oh crap, I only had myself to blame. So if you could learn from our mistakes so that you don't repeat them by listening to our podcast, then we have succeeded in our goal as far as this topic and why we do what we do.
So I have some more practical tips.
Let's hear
them. So even though I listed all these things, like big things, work backwards, blah, 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 Also, that sounds very overwhelming, what I just said. Okay, we're going to break it into this much, and I need to eat this much, and I need to exercise this much every day, go. That will work if you can sustain it. The thing is, a lot of people can't sustain it right out of the gate. They can't, like doing a 180 on your life. I don't want to say it never works, because I have seen some people do this and have it work, but I would say that's more the exception than the rule. Most of the time, you want to make changes that are small enough that you feel like you can stick to them for a long time. But in conjunction with this, like, make small changes that feel sustainable, but move your biggest rocks first. So there's this story about, I really just need to commit these to memory. There's a teacher talking about like the important things in life and blah, blah, blah. And he uses a jar as an example. And he has big rocks, medium rocks, and sand. And the big rocks are the most important things in your life. The little rocks are like the medium things. And the sand is like kind of the useless little bits, the stuff that keeps us busy a lot of time, but doesn't really add anything of value to our life. If you put the sand in the jar first, the jar representing your life, there's no room to put the big rocks and, even the medium rocks. But if you put the big rocks in first, then you fill the jar with big rocks, then you put the medium rocks in, they fall into the spaces in between the big rocks, and then there's still all this space to put sand in. It does not work the other way around. You have to do the biggest, most important things first. The example I use on this show all the time is about people emailing me about supplements when their sleep and their diet is garbage. They're asking me what kind of supplement they need to use. Honey, no. You shouldn't even be thinking about supplements right now. Like, why are you sleeping 3 hours a night? Let's work on that first. Do you even eat vegetables? Let's work on that first. That would be an example of someone putting the sand in first and not the big things. So while yes, the sand or the small details can add something at the very, very end, almost like a garnish to a fancy pants dish, it's not the dish. You're not making a dish out of, parsley, chopped parsley. So pick the things that are going to move the needle the most, and in no particular order, because it's going to depend on the person, right? What area are you kind of sucking the most at in your life? Is it sleep? Is it stress management? Is it your nutrition? Or is it just moving your body? Generally speaking, it's going to be in one of those camps. If you start with one of those and try to right that ship first, then move to the next, then move to the next, then move to the next, then you can start to get all into your what's the perfect training split for me, and what's my exact macro ratio, and are there any supplements that could benefit me. But until you have those big pieces in order, there's no point in adding the later stuff.
It's hard to preach about stuff like that because everyone likes to feel a sense of instantly being gratified for something that's exciting, or feeling a need to control something that is quite specific, or being motivated by something that looks perfect on paper. And these are the things I feel like Danny is describing that we all fall victim to at one point or another, and we don't even realize it. I don't want to say until it's too late, because that's being dramatic. However, it takes away from the goal. Sense and sensibility and delayed gratification and long-term health, framing things like that is not easy. It's not easy for someone who is putting one foot in front of the other for the first time and working towards a big goal and deconstructing into smaller goals. It's not easy for someone who's been at it for years or decades, or arguably even a lifetime. It's not easy for anybody. We all fall prey to these little things that we think are little wins that honestly take away from the systems that we stand to create to better ourselves. Because look, no one likes being bored. Everyone likes a little bit of excitement, a little bit of motivation, and a little bit of instant gratification. Mm-hmm. And it's a really tough pill to swallow to be like, you know what? You can't have any of that. Because if you have a little bit of that and you wind up craving and or get into too much of it, you're actually going to be moving in the wrong direction, feeling good about it, and then feeling bad when you get to your goal, and then it just all sucks. And that's the way I feel like most goals come crashing down on people, and they were like, what just happened? Why can't I do this? And they repeat the cycle.
I mean, I think that there's some value to like those quick wins. You know, that's why I created the 28-day overhaul program on our website, is so that people in a short period, you know, in the grand scheme, guys, 28 days is nothing. In a short period, people could feel the wins of their nutrition improving, their training improving, their cardiovascular health improving, all of those, and then their body changing as a result of that in a really short period of time. But for a lot of people, it will be hard to keep all of those balls in the air indefinitely. So, you look at it and say, okay, what really helped and what didn't? And this requires a lot of experimentation, which is, to Giacomo's point about it needs to be adaptable. That's kind of my last point, but I mean, you can say it at any time. You need to be willing to adapt it. Like, your life will change. We don't live super duper rigid lives, and you need to be willing to change the flow of some of the routines that you're doing forever. For a while, Giacomo would kind of laugh at me because I'd have these routines, but they would be really fluid. He'd be like, oh, what time are we going to go to blah, blah, blah? I'd be like, I don't know when I'm done with this next thing. And like, be like, why can't you just give me a time? And I'd be like, because my day just doesn't play out like that, unfortunately, which is true for me. It would also drive him crazy. And I understand why. But, you got to know yourself, and you have to know what is and isn't going to work for you in creating routines for you and your success.
And it's true that for every weakness, there's a strength in said weakness. And for every strength, there's a weakness in said strength. And that's where I agree with Danny's point, that you got to know yourself as opposed to working against the grain in a way that doesn't work well for you.
My next little piece of advice is to put this on paper or in a schedule of some kind. When you write it down, and up until very recently, I've been a pen and paper girl my whole life. My desk is covered with notebooks at any moment in time. All full, all of them going at once. But I realized that does not lend itself super well to running a business with employees. So I had to move things to the internet. But really, it doesn't matter how you do it, but you have to commit to it on paper or in a calendar or something somewhere. As a reference, as sort of solidifying your commitment to do these things, as just quick throughout the day. Oh, what do I have to do next? Oh yeah, that's right, I was going to do this next. And then you just carry on with it. There's a lot of science to support that writing things on paper makes you significantly more likely to follow through with that thing. So I'm a huge fan of that.
Same, actually. Honestly, I give a lot of pushback to family members who are interested in working with technology on a personal level with me, and also in business. I'm very adamant about utilizing technology because of how it makes everything live and connected, whereas putting something on a dry erase board or putting something on a piece of paper, it doesn't make someone pliable when they work with others.
If they work with others. That might not apply to what we're talking about here.
No, it might not. Mm-hmm. It definitely might not. But on a personal level, I like to write things out digitally for myself and myself only. I do. I
write things out digitally?
I go to an app and I write out everything.
Gotcha.
As opposed to being a pen and paper guy.
Just making sure I understood.
Sure.
Anybody get the reference?
Hopefully.
If you got that reference, let me know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I also am a firm believer in writing some things out. And honestly, my counselor, my therapist, she's been like ragging on me to journal with pen and paper. And I've been very resistant to it because it just doesn't come natural to me. And I just have some private personal hangups about it. But to make a long story short, I've gotten into the rhythm of it, and oh my gosh, what a way to like get your feelings and your thoughts out and just not get stuck in your head. So journaling's been incredibly helpful to me as far as just sorting my head out. And on top of that, what I can say that I've always been into is writing things out as far as what I'm going to do, what I need to do, mm-hmm. and things I'm going after, you know? And I even just did it recently on the plane ride home, thinking about what I need to do when I get back home, what I need to do when I travel. When I go somewhere, for example, and I'm with people and I'm like, you know what? I'm probably going to make decisions I don't want to make right now if I don't plan. Rather than thinking about planning or getting stuck in my head, anxiety likewise, and not being present, I'll write a little bit out. I'll spend like 5 or 10 minutes writing something out. I won't even need to read it. And because I wrote out the way that I want to be while I'm traveling on a piece of paper, I'm more likely to be that way.
There is a drawback to this that happens for some people, and it's kind of my analysis paralysis folks. You know who you are. Sometimes, like I said, there's a lot of research to suggest this is a good thing. Sometimes people get the dopamine hit from writing stuff out as if they already did it, but they never do it. Listen, if you are one of those people who writes down a bunch of to-do lists and writes out endless plans and diets and training programs and then doesn't actually do any of them, I'm talking to you. It is imperative that you just implement. Simplify it to the point where it's like you can't not do it. It's so simple that you have to do it. Don't try to make the fanciest perfect plan because it's literally garbage. It's absolutely useless if you're not actually executing it. So how do I know this type of person so well? Because that was me. So just do the thing. Do the goddamn thing. Move forward. Put one foot in front of the other. Do it. We'll just make a podcast that's just that. Just do it. You just have to do it. Just kidding. But no, seriously, don't get hooked on just writing stuff down. Don't get hooked on just listening to podcasts and not actually doing the things that it suggests, or reading self-help books and not actually doing it. There's a whole self-help world that is counting on you to not do a damn thing. So keep that in mind. It's kind of like how the people will say like the diet industry wants to keep you out of shape because that's how they keep making money. The self-help industry does great when you consume all of their books and podcasts and free PDFs and don't actually do anything, because then you just go download the next one because you've convinced yourself you're actually doing something when you're not. Okay, soapbox rant over.
I think that it is so easy to fall into that trap these days because there is no shortage of information to consume. What was it, like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, they called this the age of information or something like that? I forget how it was worded, but it's like we have more information literally at our fingertips. I mean, at this point, not even at our fingertips, just like voice. You'd be like, yo, Alexa, say something to me. And Alexa will, or Siri, or Google, or whatever. Like, whatever you need, in the blink of, not even within the blink of an eye, you can get it. So in a world like this, it is incredibly easy to just become addicted to consuming information. And for those of us who enjoy stories or enjoy learning,
I feel attacked.
it's everybody.
I don't think Giacomo gets the I feel attacked joke, but go ahead.
Keep doing it. I'll never get it. And one day I'll be like, oh, that's what she was doing, like teasing me for the last 40 years. I'm in it. I'm in it for the long haul with you, babe. So, yeah. But anyways, I think it's easy for all of us to get stuck with the dopamine hit or the level of enjoyment or the need to complete something. And there's no shortage of information to fully consume. And there never will be. I don't even know where it's going to be in the next 10 to 20 years, but it's just something to be concerned about, you know?
Along this same line of all the things we were just talking about, finding the right tools for you. So Giacomo mentioned pen and paper. He mentioned computer. There's a lot of apps out there that can help you if you find the right one for you to help you create habits, create routines. They exist. You know, I've tried a million of them. It's not like I've found one that I'm like, oh my God, this is the one. Everybody needs to download this. I use Asana for all of my tasks that I need to do, and I find it to be super helpful, but it's a pretty heavy program, so I imagine a lot of people wouldn't necessarily love it. But even something as simple as a lot of my clients just set timers on their phone every day, recurring timers. that says like, hey, have you drank a liter of water yet? And it'll go off at 10 a.m. every day to just check in and see how they're doing with that. Or reminders at night, put your gym clothes in your work bag for tomorrow. Whatever the habits are that you're trying to create, simple timers on your phone can be really helpful. Also really annoying, but really helpful. By the time you cannot stand them anymore, by the time they are so annoying that you need to shut them off, if you've been doing it correctly, you shouldn't even need them anymore. It should start to just be a regular routine at that point. So play around with some different tools. There are different ones for everybody. Find ones that work for you and use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to Danny's point when she says that eventually you don't even need the things that are in front of you making you do the thing, like timers. You just do away with them because you're just that person who has been doing it long enough where you don't need timers anymore. What I was thinking was, don't be afraid to swallow your pride and go back to those things that worked to when you realize you may be a little off track and you're checking yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, don't be afraid to scale up. Sometimes, speaking from personal experience, I'll be like, oh crap, I'm doing so much. How am I going to do more? Oh my gosh, I have to look at everything that I'm doing. I'm probably not capable of doing more because I'm doing all these things. Let me write them down to make sure that I'm doing them and doing them well. And then let me look at the things that I've written down to make sure that I'm doing everything.
You lost me.
When in reality, let me try to bring us back home here with this long formed thought process. When you do stuff, right, and you have to, whatever, you're setting timers, for example, and you're writing things down, and then you stop setting timers and you stop writing things down, and then you do these things. For someone like me, it can become scary to start doing more things. I'll be afraid that I'm letting go of the things that I no longer wrote down or I no longer set timers for. But don't be afraid to set starting points for stuff where you're writing things down or setting things up in your phone and then doing it without that, and then doing more and more and more, and realizing like you can continue to do more and grow and level up without needing to record everything that you're doing, if that makes any sense. You're looking at me like I'm confusing you.
No, I'm not confused. I don't know if I totally agree. Because
okay.
Yes, I mean, yeah, you can do more and more and more, but I feel like some people get so hooked on optimizing every friggin' second of their day that they actually lose a lot of being present and like being actually enjoying their life. I don't know. I optimize as much as you need to. Minimum effective dose. That's actually a YouTube video that I'm hoping to record in the next couple weeks. But the idea is you want to do only as much, dieting, exercise, whatever the thing is, only as much to make the progress you need to make, not necessarily more. So I don't know. We just might have differing opinions there, and that's fine because there are people that fall on both sides of that. But as a being a workaholic is like literally runs through my blood every minute of every day. For me, it's actually really hard to slow down and do less. So when I hear someone say, "Oh, just do more and more and more and more," I'm like, yeah, I can do more. I can do more. I can totally do more. And then I'm completely burnt out and strung out, and you see me disappear from the internet for 6 months.
Well, sometimes you get burnt out and strung out, and sometimes you're able to check yourself. And I like where you're going. It's actually a very interesting thought process you have, and thank you for sharing the perspective, Danny. So in light of what you're doing, analyzing what I'm thinking about here, I feel like the answer, the happy place, is where you revisit the things you've been doing, and instead of framing it as doing more, you can add more things onto your plate that you want to do, but then look back at what you've been doing and realize like where you need to let go a little bit to be balanced.
I think so. And that's the thing. I'm just, balance is something that's really important to me. And, you can absolutely do the flip side too. You're just like not doing enough. There's a lot of people out there just not doing enough and wondering why they're not reaching their goals. So, I feel like our audience in particular tends to actually be the former, where it's like they are ready to just grind themselves into a paste to achieve whatever, and then wondering why they feel like garbage all the time. And it's like, you're probably doing more than you need to do. Example, so I had a client, actually this has happened a couple times in the past month. I have a client, she has a big weight loss goal. She's been crushing it for the past 8 months, just killing it. In the past few weeks in her check-ins, she's saying to me, I'm really tired. Like, one of the questions is, how's your energy doing? And she's like, I am tired. And I'm like, well, you've been dieting for a while now. I'll give it another week, see if this is a fluke, blah, blah, blah. Next week, I'm still tired. I'm like, okay, we're going to go on a diet break. Increased her calories by like 250 or something like that. She comes back next week. 1, she does not say she's tired. 2, she's lost like 4 pounds in a week by eating more, something she was afraid to do. And it's because, 1, it's because of all the hard work she put in prior to that, but also, your body and your brain will give you signs that it's time to take a step back. And yeah, you have to push to achieve big things. You have to, but yeah, you can push too far to the point where you're just not making the progress anymore. And part of you says, oh, well, I just have to go harder. I just have to keep pushing hard. I'm not making progress anymore. Got to push harder. But sometimes actually taking that step back can move you forward. None of this has anything to do with creating unbreakable routines, but still worth mentioning. Also, that particular client, you know who you are, and I'm super psyched with everything you've done.
Right on. Yeah, so how do we sum up routine and how we feel about making sure that it's unbreakable, and maybe just a recap of the tips here, right? Look at the main culprits, the things that you could be working on most likely, whether it's hydration, sleep.
Hydration wasn't one of them.
Should be.
It's important, but no, sleep, stress management, nutrition, and movement, like moving your body.
Mm-hmm. So that was one of our helpful tips. Oh gosh, I'm spacing out.
I have the list. Do you want me to?
Yeah, please, because we were all over the place as usual.
So start small. Make sure it's sustainable. Start with one of those big 4 that he just mentioned. Work backwards from the goal you're trying to achieve. Reverse engineer this. Put it on paper. Schedule it. And find tools that work for you, whether that's a pen and paper or a very specific app or timers on your phone.
There might have been one more.
The biggest, there were a couple of others, but honestly, I think the biggest, most important one is, this is how to create an unbreakable routine. You can't. No, I mean, like, stuff's going to happen. There's going to be a family emergency. You're going to have to run out of the house. You're going to sleep through your alarm someday. Like, sometimes these things are going to happen. The key is to be adaptable and flexible enough with the routine that one day where something gets thrown off doesn't derail everything, that you're not like, oh, I broke my streak, so I guess I'm done. I can't stand it when I hear someone say I broke my streak, even though I've said it myself, because it implies that if you did something for 280 days and then you missed one day, you're back at 0. I don't buy it. But, being flexible with the routine, recognizing when something is just consistently not working and changing it, that's really important. And then getting back on track as soon as possible, because habits are really easy to break, like super easy to break long term. And you don't want to do that. So getting back on track is really, really important. There's a lot more we could say about this topic. And if you guys have any questions or suggestions, like what do you want to hear about, you let us know. You always can. Email coach@veganproteins. Hit the contact button on veganproteins.com. We love these suggestions, and we have a running list. And now that we have Christina editing these so well and so quickly, we're able to put them out at a much better rate, I think. So.
And as much as we like to talk about everything and make our podcast as complete as possible, we also love to engage and continue the conversation with you. Come hang out with us in our Facebook group, Muscles by Brussels. We usually post the episodes up there, and there are things that we still need to talk about when it comes to habits and unbreakable routine, and that's where the conversation gets get started, honestly. I guess it starts with Danny and I and then continues with you, the listener. On top of that, become a member of Muscles by Brussels and you get access to our live calls. Like, we have video calls with the whole team twice a month, and you get access to us via email. You get video responses from us whenever you send us messages because you're a member of Muscles by Brussels. And then, of course, like, we have a private Facebook group, and that's where we really get deep into these kinds of conversations. So,
well, you also get periodized workouts that update every month in an app for home or the gym, which is the big thing people sign up for. But every piece of it, I think, is pretty cool. So if you'd like to be a member, there's a link in the show notes for a free 1-month trial. So if you want to sign up for that, go ahead. We'd love to have you. Speaking of our Muscles by Brussels Facebook group, the questions today are coming from there. Moving on to our question and answer segment. This one is from Jessie, and she says, how can I gain size in my legs with a vegan lifestyle?
How can I gain size
in my legs
with
a vegan lifestyle?
Well, the size in your legs part has to do with how you program for yourself. And the simple answer is to prioritize your legs over your upper body. And it also depends on the kind of shape that you want, right? So when you think about your legs, what do you want your legs to look like, right? And this is stereotyping, but typically quads tend to be more well-developed and sometimes even overdeveloped in men and women. And hamstrings and glutes tend to be less developed, glutes being the underdeveloped part out of all three, unless you specifically trained your glutes. That's just how bodies work. That's how bodies move when you're not bodybuilding. So my first thought here is to prioritize glute training, and then secondarily to prioritize hamstring training. And don't neglect your quads, but take a look at your physique, take a look at your body, and also think about what you want your body to look like. And then at that point, figure out how much quad training you want to do. And then the other thing, of course, is like to look at the amount of days that you have to train and make sure that you're favoring your lower body. Because here's the deal. Not only do you want to hit your lower body harder, you also want to make sure there's enough room to create fatigue for lower body training. You can only handle so much training for the week. So you might think more is better and say, I'm going to train a lot of legs, I'm going to get bigger everywhere. But the truth is, your body can only tolerate so much. So doing more of everything is not necessarily the answer. If you want bigger legs specifically, train your legs more frequently. Let's say you have a 4-day split, train your legs twice, and maybe on the third out of the fourth day, sprinkle a little bit of legs in there, especially as you adapt to being able to hit your legs harder, which you will if you consistently work your legs hard for at least 3 to 6 months. You'll be able to sprinkle in some leg training into that third day, without obviously forgetting about your upper body, because you don't want to do that. As far as the vegan lifestyle goes, well, call me biased, but in reality, living a vegan lifestyle, you tend to make healthier choices, so you'll probably wind up having a more anti-inflammatory diet because you're going to lean on more nutritious food because you're looking to be a healthy, more fit person. So just keep doing your thing, eating lots of fruits, eating lots of vegetables, whole foods in general, while also making sure that you get in a lot of protein. It's less of an issue these days than it was 10, 20 years ago, but we still tend to forget that we need to favor overt proteins, meaning plant-based foods that are higher in protein, not just like 10 to 20% protein, but like 50+% protein. Those kinds of foods need to be incorporated into your nutrition plan. And if you're in a calorie deficit, it's even more important. In a calorie surplus, you may be able to get away with proteins that are like 50% dense in protein as opposed to like 70 to 80% like gluten. Instead of gluten, maybe you could rely more on tofu, for example. But yeah, that's pretty much the long and the short of it as far as vegan lifestyle goes and favoring your legs.
I would just add, your legs are not going to grow if you're in a caloric deficit. Make sure you're eating enough calories. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
True that. And this question is for you, Danny, and it's from Jessie. Another Jessie?
Yes, a male Jessie.
A male Jessie? That was a female Jessie.
Yep.
Haha, cool. So, male Jessie. Any tips on carb loading for muscle mass? Want to look my best on August 6th. Have been in a deficit for a while.
Okay, so this guy's been in a deficit for a while. He wants to know how to manipulate carbohydrates so that he can look his best on August 6th. So this, I don't think he's competing, but this is kind of like what we call a peak week, which is what we do in the final week before a bodybuilding show to make sure that the body looks its best, because quite frankly, a really dieted down body kind of looks like crap. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's true. When you've been in a deficit for a really, really long time, your muscles look flat. They have no glycogen in them, which is a good thing. That's how you burn through body fat. You have to burn through the glycogen in your bloodstream, in your liver, and then in your muscles. And then we start tapping into body fat storage. But glycogen in your muscles makes them look full and round and hard. So we like that look. So generally speaking, with carbohydrates, what I would do is, if you've been dieting properly, you've probably been doing low days and some refeed days. So I would have refeed days for the 2 or even 3 days leading up to the day you're trying to look your best. So if he's trying to look his best on the 6th, I would say the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, refeed, where you at least double your carbohydrates. If you want to play it safe, you could just double your carbohydrates. If you want to be a little bit more ambitious, you could maybe triple your carbohydrates, and then on that day right before, so the 5th in this case, maybe pull them back down to just 2 times, gauging based on how you look. You also want to train on these days, just light, high rep, just really, really what I call pumpy workouts, where you're just trying to drive that glycogen into the muscle. But that's it. A lot of people in the comments recommended water manipulations. That can be a little bit risky. That can go south depending on how you're manipulating water. If you don't know exactly how your body's going to respond to that, it can actually cause you to retain a bunch of water right on that day. So, generally, if you want to manipulate water at all, drink more of it. More water in your body means you're going to pee more water out. The worst thing you can do to stop water retention is stop drinking water. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Don't forget to register for the 5 Keys to Vegan Fat Loss webinar on Monday, August 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email us, coach@veganproteins.com. You can also reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Vegan Proteins. Thanks again so much for tuning in. My name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.